Hi, this is Chris with CodeChris.com. Thank you for watching, and let's talk about some things that hopefully you can learn from. And these are mistakes that I made as an entrepreneur. So, for those of you who have been following for a while, you're aware that I used to work for myself. I ran my own animation company where I was a sole proprietorship. I hired some people to help out and on certain projects, and so got a lot of experience with all the different things about being an entrepreneur, running your own business, etc., 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 dealing with clients and taxes and all that fun stuff. Okay, well, there was a lot of lessons learned from that. And so now I'm in the coding world, right? And so it's a different field entirely. And right now I'm not working for myself. I am not, in charge of a sole proprietorship. So, what are some of the mistakes that I made in the past? Hopefully, you can learn from, and that if I do work for myself, again, that will not be repeated. A couple of things. Um, Paperwork. Probably the most common thing you'll hear about is the difficulty of obtaining payment from people. When you're a freelancer, when you're an entrepreneur in general, you're going to have clients that you don't know, that are strangers. And one of the biggest things when you're trying to get new work or you're trying to speed up the process because it's so slow and people like to drag their feet is you can very quickly skip the paperwork step. You don't need anything fancy. You don't need anything crazy. You don't have to be like uh, a super. You don't need a very great lawyer or anything. Okay, there's literally basic contract generators online. You could use, modify the words, and just use it for your setup. The basic premise is that you need a payment system set up, right? Whether that's half now, half later, increments, milestones, whatever the payment system is set up as. Get that down on paper and get them to sign it. Okay. They might not even use the paperwork. They may not even care about it. You guys might not even quite stick to it the way you should. But the point is that I've found that when there is paperwork involved, people get much more serious. Okay. Are you gonna take them to court? Depending on the size of the project. I mean, for me, most of the projects I worked on were not nearly big enough to justify going through all the extra hassle of going through something like that. But regardless, the mentality is different, okay? You're trying to set up a environment that both you and the client understand this is a business transaction, and when you get something on paper, it makes things much more clear and concise. Because one of the biggest issues you're going to have is just getting them to pay. So when you make things very clear about, deposit, they don't do a deposit, you do not start the project. That's the other thing too. The next thing is probably being steadfast in what you say. So something as simple as a deposit and not beginning the work until you've received your deposit, or you've hit a milestone and they're due for a payment, but oh, they're behind a week, or oh, this is not a good whatever. Okay, that's fine. You stop. You stop work. You do not continue work until that has continued, okay? Now, sometimes some people may say like, "Oh, well, that's just being mean, they're good for it and whatever they," and maybe that's the case. But you need to stick to a hard line because people will try to take advantage of that. And ultimately, even if they're not taking advantage of it, they will drag their feet. Nobody wants to pay money for something, even if it's something that they want. Nobody wants to pay for the service that they need. And the thing is that you, meanwhile, are putting off other work because you're working on this project for them, but you're not getting paid for it. So now you're essentially doing free work. So all in all, you're just be consistent, write that hard line in the sand from the beginning, make it very clear. Not gonna be mean about it, but make it very clear that that's the situation. You do not work for free. When payment stops, your work stops, and all that, and try to get that payment stuff up front on paper, also, so that it's very clear what they owe, when they owe it. Also, putting in a stipulation about either a set point in time for the scope of the project, or a date. Because what will also happen too is people like to kind of have this like fickleness about revisions, and they'll just keep reiterating over and over and over, and you'll get this sort of like, oh well, that last payment isn't, well, that's so when it's done, well, let's make this change, it's not really done until this change happens, until this change happens. It just keeps going on and on and on. You set stipulations in there about revisions, setting a revision limit, and or size of the scope of the project, and also a deadline. If this or this date happens, whatever comes first, right? This also prevents you from having projects that end up going on way too long, right? They get dragged out when they really don't need to, especially if it's like a fixed price project. Ideally, if you don't need fixed price projects, that would be the ideal scenario. If you can if you can go hourly, that'd be the best way to go. Once again, you still got that same situation where you're trying to get payment for something, and trying to set up a retainer of some kind. It kind of helps with that. But the point is, getting it very clear, prices, paperwork, all that stuff down on there, and that makes things very clear for you and them. Okay, don't be afraid to talk about money with them, or cost. Trust me, it's on their mind, it's on your mind. So that's probably like the first mistake that I was not. It's something that I kind of learned and got working, but that's something that's important, especially in the beginning, because that's going to be a hard learning lesson. Next thing is working for things like experience. So, especially when you're starting off with nothing in your portfolio, or very little in your portfolio, you can be tempted to work on projects for free, with the experience and things that you're going to be using for your other clients. I have worked for so many things as an intern, as a whatever, for experience that I don't even reference. It's not even worth it. What I would say instead is work cheap. That's fine. You're learning, whatever the case is. If you do work for something, do not allow them to bring you into this idea of like, oh, well, it's a new company and we're going to have stock you can get in, and we'll go ahead and pay you in, references, anything like that. I like those sort of odd deals anyways. But at the end of the day, you need to have a monetary compensation for your time. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't. Depending on what the situation is. If you do see it as an investment for, no man, like I'm going to use this as the base model for future projects. Your client doesn't know that, but you do. So maybe you're willing to bid a little bit less, to make sure that you secure the project, or whatever the case is. Regardless, though, this does not mean that you're working for free for hopes of future work. Don't let them pay you with the promise of future work. There's no such thing as future work. You don't know that. And once again, this is a business transaction between two people. There is nothing saying that there is a loyalty there, that if you build them something, that they won't necessarily find somebody who can do a similar job or a different job, somewhere else, a different time, and a different task. It's just the nature of how things work. They might, they may not. Just throwing that out there. So throw that in there. What else? Other mistakes I made as an entrepreneur. Do not think everything you buy is an investment. Okay, I think a common thing that you'll do, especially in the beginning, is thinking that everything you're getting is an investment. Okay, oh, I'm investing in this camera. Oh, I'm investing in this software. Oh, I'm investing in this new computer. Oh, I'm investing. by all means, for tax purposes, you write it off that way, but not everything you're getting is always an investment, okay? Um, because in order for it to be an investment, it's got to return its value and then some, okay? So, and what can end up happening is you can end up investing a whole lot before the income has been generated for it to pay for it. Okay. So, for example, I got a tablet that I had invested in, right? Um, but then, of course, there was the money issue with the client, and things were slow and all this other stuff. And it's fine now. It's paid for itself at this point. It's fine, but the point remains that you can definitely get ahead of the game on investing in things before the money's there. And ultimately, besides investing in the items you need, the software you need, the whatever, you are also going to need to have, you know, actual profit margins. And those investments don't go into your profit, they suck it away. So, if you do a $3,000 project and then buy a $2,500 laptop, well, yeah, that tablet is paid for, but you only made 500 bucks, okay? And that means the work you did, you've only made 500 bucks. Now, the next project, you'll make more and you'll be more efficient and everything else because now you have this item. But I guess what I'm saying is just don't get ahead of the game where you end up spending several $1,000s, or even the small stuff, right? You end up investing 20 bucks for a plugin. You end up investing another 50 bucks for this plugin, 70 bucks for this annual thing. Oh, it's gonna be great. I'll use it for all my clients. You know, just don't think that everything you're getting is an investment. And which brings me to the next thing about taxes. I don't think I ever made this mistake, but don't think that because you can write something off on your taxes that it's free, that you're making money back from it. Okay, very common misconception. What actually is going to happen is that when you do your taxes, right? Let's say you spent $5,000 on materials and whatever, and that's what you're claiming. You don't get $5,000 of free tax money. Okay, of that $5,000, there is a percentage of it that the government will not tax and will give you it's not a credit. They will just not tax this portion of it and they'll take it away. And then of course it can get away from your net profit, which is what you're being taxed on, and all that. So just things to bear in mind. I think a common misconception is people are like, oh, well, lunch is free. Oh, well, this camera is free. This software is free. This whatever is free because I'll just claim it on my taxes. It's the thing is that if you need to buy the thing, go ahead and buy it, and you'll help supplement some of your taxes with that item. But it's not like it's free. It's not like it doesn't cost you anything. And in most cases, it's only, like I said, it's a small percentage of whatever it is you're spending. So I remember, let's say it was 10%. So if you spent $5,000 on stuff in a year, and you're allowed to, deduct 10% of that $5,000, well, that's not nearly as much as you might have been thinking in your head. Okay, you might have been thinking, oh, well, I have $5,000 that it can't be taxed. No, that's not how it works. So, all right, so there's that. What else? This is something so I didn't actually have this issue with myself, but a habit that I've seen other entrepreneurs do is you are eventually, it's just going to happen, you're going to have a client who's not happy, who through means of your own or not by your own, they are emotional, whether it's sad or frustrated or angry or whatever the case is, and you need to communicate with that client. I haven't had the issue of becoming emotional with a client and getting angry at them or yelling or anything like that. Um, but I definitely know there are others who um, have had thin skin, and you know, the whole business transaction goes up in flames, and everybody's yelling at each other, and it just gets very heated. And unfortunately, that's just kind of like the bridge they burnt. Which is, you don't need. I think that's the other thing too is, well, finishing that thought first. So yeah, just the client gets angry, don't get angry back. Always stay calm, always stay professional. If they use vulgar language, don't get involved. You are not buddies. You are two people agreeing to a business transaction, so you're not buddies. Don't get all vulgar with your language and become a sailor or anything like that. Even if they are, try and stay a step above that. Now, as far as nope. I think that covers it. um, so other mistakes. Don't try to multitask too much. Okay. Now everybody's different and whatever. Some people have the ability to. It depends on what you're doing. To listen to music and work, or watch a video and work, or just listen to a video, or whatever the case is. Just don't think that you can pop in movies all day long and work if that's not really something you can do. If you can't handle, not looking away from the TV or whatever, it just doesn't work. Okay, um, you know, music for some things it's hard. If you're editing, text, if you're changing text and you're going through emails or whatever, and you've got lyrics going on, you know, for some people they can't tune it out. I have issues, specifically when I'm working with words and I'm listening to words to make it work the way I need to. Um, so sometimes I can do non-lyrical music and I can mess with that. Um, but if I'm moving around graphics, I can listen to whatever. It doesn't matter, right? Um, Depending on what's going on, it can be, a podcast, but sometimes it can't be. And once again, figure out what it is for you. But don't try to multitask too many things, right? Um, which brings up the next point. Um, Timers. Get good at timers. So ultimately, what is going to happen at a certain point when things are going well, you're juggling multiple projects in a single day. So, I reached a point where I had people I was managing, clients I was talking with, and projects I was working on all in the same day. Each one different projects and all that stuff. So you want to do a couple of things. One, you want to be aware of where your time is going. So you need to be aware by using timers. So there's a million apps. And you just set a timer for each different client, for each different process. So that when you look back and you've completed a project, you can see, all right, how much did I make? How efficient was I? How much time am I actually spending on these email correspondence back and forth, back and forth? How much time am I spending working on this project? How much did I think it was going to take? Try to take some estimates on what you think this might take. Especially if it's like a fixed project, you have to make that guess. And then make sure to time yourself so that you can see how long it actually did take. Did you leave enough buffer time? Did you not? And then you can evaluate moving forward. It's very easy to not keep track of all the time that you're juggling, especially changing the timers back and forth. But that'll very easily happen. So that's an important one to remember. Which also brings up another one, a very important thing when you're working for yourself. Make it a priority to try and have some kind of set hours. I don't care when, I don't know when, it doesn't really matter. But the point is you want to be sure to get in for the day at least 8 hours. At least. Um, you know, get into the habit that just because you're working from home, just because you're working remotely, that it doesn't mean that you get to take time off, okay? If you aren't working, you aren't making money, unless you've found a way to generate passive income, which is kind of the goal for eventually. But the point is that until you're at that point, you need to build the routine of an 8-hour day. Okay, it can be in the morning, some at night, some spread out. It can be paused, whatever. But the nice thing about those timers is you can genuinely see, if you're slacking off, if you're on YouTube or you're doing something else, when you pause those timers and you come back, you'll see that hey, you still got 2 more hours in the day. You still got whatever, and for me at least, it helps me stay focused to know that hey, I haven't put in my time yet. Okay, helps me focus and try and get things done efficiently, fast, get it out of the way. The reason why, even if you don't have 8 hours of work, I would recommend putting in 8 hours, is because let's say you complete your tasks and it only takes you 4 hours. Well, instead of just being like, whoop, I'm done for the day, and sometimes you want to do that, whatever, but by keeping it to an 8-hour day, what you're doing is you're essentially trying to utilize that extra time that you've allotted for the day. So with those remaining 4 hours in the day, you can be looking for new work. You can be looking for that next gig. That's 4 hours of time. You can either be learning a new skill, or researching for the next project, or looking for new work. Okay, do not make the mistake of thinking that, well, I only have to work 4 hours and I'm done. All right. You can modify it too. I mean, I definitely had times where I worked an entire day straight, 12, 16 hours, and I was fine with that, right? I took the next day off, or I didn't work as many hours the next day. My goal was always to have, at minimum, 40 hours a week into my business, okay? And if you're an entrepreneur, you want to grow your business. You want to become successful at the business. You have to put the time into the business. So, you're really not robbing anyone else of anything but yourself and your company if you're not putting in that time. So, minimum 40 hours. Most people will tell you more, and the reality is you definitely, very easy to do more, but, make sure that you're putting in those 40. Otherwise, you're not really making progress. And the goal is ultimately you want to make progress for your own company. Anyways, so those are some of the common pitfall mistakes entrepreneurs make, some of which I definitely made, and I learned from, and that's it. All right. Anyways, this is Chris with CodeChris.com. Is that interesting to you? Is it helpful? Whatever your thoughts, let me know. I have been thinking about what I'm going to be doing moving forward as an entrepreneur, but right now I'm not quite in looking for that same frame of stuff. My goal for being an entrepreneur is different because I'm not looking to go to clients the same way I used to. I think I want to do more of a service-based thing. So for example, this right here, saying the mistakes I've made and what I've learned from it. Well, I think believing that working for yourself and working for clients is the easiest thing, it's not. Actually, I'm just going to end it there because I don't even know where I was going with that. Anyways, this is Chris with CodeChris.com. Thank you for watching, liking, subscribing, all that fun stuff. That's it. Have a nice day.